Okay, this is another reaction video. This is from The World According to Briggs. This is the most isolated cities in the world. So we're going global again. So the most isolated cities in the world. Let's see what these are. Please click like, share, and subscribe for him. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me as well.
Have you ever wanted to get away from everything and still be around people? Did you know there are cities and towns on this spinning rock so remote that 98% of the world's population has no idea these places even exist? We've done other videos, and other channels have done videos on remote places, and some of them are known, like St. Helena in the South Atlantic, Iqaluit in Canada. There's a few other ones that are known and they're very remote. We're talking about ones that hardly anyone knows about. Sure, if you're watching this video from around one of those places I'm talking about, you know about it, but most of the population doesn't. I'd never heard of half of these before I did the research for this video, and I study geography daily. This video follows no real stat or theme other than they're way out in the middle of nowhere, away from any other human settlement bigger than, let's say, a
That's rather interesting. I really am now curious to see where he found.
Small village. As you look at these towns on this list, you kind of got to wonder, why would people live here? It's one thing if you want to live off the grid, then you're out in the woods by yourself, and that's, understandable, but to be out in the middle of nowhere with a whole bunch of other people just seems kind of strange. As you watch this video,
I don't know. I mean, again, it depends on, maybe you were born there and never wanted to leave there. I mean, maybe maybe it's just right up your alley. It is something to think about.
Let me know how many you've heard of before in the comment section below. Also, if you know of any other places that should have been on this list, we'd love to hear about it again in the comment section. All right, this should be fun. Let's take a look. Number 7, Coober Pedy, Australia.
Okay, now I've never been to Australia, so if you've ever been to Coober Pedy, let me know about it.
Or as the locals call it, Coober Pedy. This is a really interesting place. It is out in the middle of the outback in South Australia. If you want to get to Coober Pedy from, let's say, Melbourne, you got to drive 17 hours northwest just to find the place.
Wow. 17 hours just to get there?
And for some odd reason, if you look at this, it's actually only an hour less to fly there. What kind of plane does this place have? Do they do crop dusting on the way to Melbourne or something like that? I think that's a mistake on Google Maps. I could be wrong. I don't know the background of that one. But there is another place called Adelaide, and if you want to go there, that's about a 9-hour drive. There is nothing out here. If you've ever driven through parts of North Dakota where it's just flat and you see nothing, Montana has a big stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Montana before, and it's not too dissimilar. I mean, you can't. You're literally out in the middle of nowhere.
It's like that too. This is way worse. There is nothing out there. It's just flat in most parts, for as far as the eye can see, and desertish. Coober Pedy is a strange little place to live. They've got about 2,500 residents in this out-of-the-way desert town. Half of the residents live underground. Yeah, no kidding. They actually have over 100 homes dug into the bedrock in Coober Pedy. The only reason Coober Pedy is where it is and people live there is the opal mining. This is actually considered the opal mine.
Okay, well that explains it, why they're there. But living underground, out in the middle of the desert, okay.
Mining capital of the world. I was watching one video where a guy said that he would go to school, come home, do his homework, have some dinner, and then his dad would tell the kids to grab a chisel and a hammer because they're building a new bedroom. They just start digging into the wall to make another bedroom. It's not just the homes. They actually have churches and shops underground. They have a bar underground, a couple other things.
Hey, it may be isolated, but if you're happy there, I mean, at a place like there, do they have, they have like internet and everything? I would imagine they would, but for someone who's never lived out someplace like that, or really, I mean, I've been through Montana, but it wasn't there for that long. It certainly wasn't a 17-hour drive to get to someplace there.
Number 6, Untitled Tuvalo. Now, if I pronounce that wrong, sorry. I'm not sure if anyone's going to call me on it. Not many people live there, and only about 400 people visit this place a year. And most of those visitors are just reporters from around the world showing up to ask that age-old question. Why the hell do you people live here? 6,000 people call this entire atoll home, and the nearest place that has any sizable population is Fiji, almost 1,200 kilometers away. This place is so small, their main part of their atoll, their island, the airstrip they have runs almost the entire length of the main part of.
That kind of looks like the Florida Keys to some extent. I mean, I've been to the Florida Keys before, but that doesn't look too dissimilar.
the city. That airstrip doubles as a soccer field, meeting place, and jogging track. Just like all of you, I've never been here, so I'm relying on what I've read, and a lot of people say the locals are wonderful if you're there to visit, but if you decide you're going to stay, don't expect to be accepted anytime soon.
Yeah, I can understand that. If you're there to visit, that's great, but if you're there to stay, maybe not so much.
If you do decide to visit, I'd visit pretty soon because the place is sinking into the ocean. As the sea levels rise, this place will disappear. Let's say you are living there and you wanted to go to someplace bigger or you needed to get someplace, you're going to New Zealand or Hawaii.
Okay, so you're really out in the middle of nowhere.
Number 5, Yokutsu Russia.
Yeah, I've actually heard of Yokutsu. I've never been there, obviously, but I have heard of it.
Yokutsu is in Siberia on the Lena River and is considered the coldest city in the world. There are colder places, but they say this is the actual coldest city. I remember a few other places claiming they're the coldest cities. Either way, the average temperature here in the winter is where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet at minus 40 degrees.
Wow.
There is only one resident per square mile on average in this region of Russia, and most live in this city. The region is divided into multiple administration centers the size of Arizona, and some of these sections only have 1 or 2 residents in the whole area. They have one road into the city from the south, and during the winter, I read that they closed down.
I mean, there's a lot of people who would never want to step foot in this place, let alone live here. I mean, especially if it's the coldest city in the world, that's what the claim is. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose everybody has their reason, but no, not in a million years.
Down.
I mean, certainly I can understand living on that island in the middle of, I think it was Pacific Ocean, probably where the Pacific and Indian Ocean meet, but
that road.
No, I'm not going to live here.
And they use the river instead because the river just freezes solid. There's some rivers in Alaska that do this too. I mean, we've all seen ice road truckers, but it's pretty bad when they actually close down the road and just decide to go with the river. If you've ever heard the old phrase, locked up in Siberia or something to do with Siberia, like they're going to send you to Siberia. Back in the old Soviet Union days, that's where they sent the hardest criminals, to Siberia. Well, this town hosted that prison that everyone talked about.
I did see a prison show one time on about this place called Black Dolphin Prison in Russia, which is absolutely a nightmare. If you ever see it, Black Dolphin Prison is one of the worst places you could ever be sent to. But no, I have no desire to even visit this place.
I watched one girl's video. She went there. She's a Russian girl. And she went up there and she was kind of checking out the town. And she said the locals kept talking about the heat wave they were having. It was minus 30 degrees Celsius.
That's a heat wave. It's negative 30 degrees Celsius.
While she was talking about it, her eyelashes had ice on them. If you wanted to drive and see your relatives in Moscow from here, you're talking about 112 hours of driving. And if you flew, it's about 6.5 hours. That's if it's the part of the season where a plane would actually leave or land here. Number 4, Hangaroa, Easter Island.
Yeah, Easter Island out in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah, did you know Easter Island had a city? 90% of the
I didn't know it had a city, but I've heard of Easter Island.
People that live on Easter Island actually live in the city of Hangaroa. Easter Island is by itself. It's not like a bunch of little islands all around it. This island sits out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean by itself, almost 2,000 miles off the coast of
Yeah, those are the statues that they have out there. And to the best of my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong on this, nobody knows who built them.
Chile. Yeah, that far out. And if you're watching from someplace else, you don't understand miles, it's about 3,000 kilometers. Hangaroa sits between 2 volcanoes, which I'm sure raises the anxiety level of the 3,300 residents. When I hear that, it's like the town needs lifeboats like you have on a cruise ship. In case those 2 volcanoes decide to blow, you can just float out into the water and wait for help. It might take a while for that help to get there because, like I said, this island is about 3,000 kilometers off the coast of Chile.
Yeah, but I have heard of Easter Island before.
Number 3, Longyearbyen, Norway.
Okay, now we're at least somewhat close to civilization. This looks like it's in the Arctic Ocean, not too far from Greenland. Looks like this is, I'm guessing, well, it's still out in the middle of the ocean, so I think that's the ocean.
The Norwegian town of Longyearbyen is actually closer to the North Pole than it is the Norwegian capital.
Yeah, the Arctic. I guess it's the Arctic Ocean. The only reason I said it was ocean because sometimes they have seas up there. Sometimes they call them seas instead of oceans. I'm assuming this is the Arctic Ocean.
Capital of Oslo. It's on the island of Svalbard, and it is considered the world's most northern town. If you think Norway, Sweden, and Finland are pretty far north, this is past mainland Scandinavia.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely past mainland Scandinavia.
At the edge of the Arctic Ocean. This town found an interesting way to cut down on crime. They actually made it illegal to live here without a permanent residence or a job. You have to have a job to work here, and as we all know, most employed people are now.
But it also makes you wonder, why would you go up there in the first place? Even if you were a criminal, why would you go there?
Out trying to do stupid stuff that's illegal. On top of that, they got a bunch of polar bears floating around, so, late night prowling's really not a thing here. You know what else is illegal? Dying. According to the BBC News, the town has outlawed dying. The ground is so hard here, it's next to impossible to bury someone. So if you get a terminal illness or something like that, they load you up on a boat or a plane and ship you south where you.
And what if you just die suddenly? What do? I guess, long story short, if you die here and they need to bury you in the cemetery, the cemetery's not going to be there. If your loved one passes away, you're going to probably have to go back to the mainland to pay your respects.
You can be buried. This town has about 3,000 residents, oddly enough. And everyone has guns because of the polar bears we talked about earlier. The other problem with burying people here, if you can get them in the ground, they'll never decompose because it's like putting them in the icebox. Longyearbyen is about a 3-hour flight from Oslo. I don't even know if you'd want to go here by sea. That's some rough ocean.
It's time to choose.
Why not both?
Arnold Palmer Spike.
Number 2, Tórshavn, Faroe Islands.
Okay, so you're between Iceland and Norway here in the Faroe Islands. And I have heard of I've heard of the Faroe Islands because I do follow football, and I know the Faroe Islands is usually an easy win in the World Cup qualification.
If you don't know where the Faroe Islands are, they're kind of between Norway and Iceland, north of Scotland. They're out there by themselves in the North Sea, and there's actually 18 islands that make up the Faroe Islands. The entire Faroe Islands only have 50,000 residents, with Tórshavn being the capital, and they have the most of all those 50,000 with 14,000 residents, and a really cool flag for the city. Nothing like
Yeah, that is a cool flag.
a giant arm jutting out of the water with a red hammer to let everyone know you mean business. Unlike most places on this list, this one is somewhat easy to get to. There's a lot of flights that go there from Edinburgh and Copenhagen and Oslo and Reykjavik. But if you want to take a boat,
an hour and a half by plane, and I'm guessing, well, nobody's going to drive to the Faroe Islands, so I'm guessing that's, well, he said he's going to talk about boat, because I don't know why they have a car. It looks like a car.
to Copenhagen or Oslo, it's
42 hours you're going to drive there? But no, I don't think so.
about 42 hours. But with only
then it's actually by boat, because that looked like a car, not a boat, but 42 hours by boat.
50,000 residents in all these islands, it's scarcely populated. They have actually more sheep than people. All right, before we get...
And that's not too dissimilar like places in Wyoming and South Dakota where they have more cows than people.
Get to number 1. Don't forget, we have another channel called On This Day. We'd love it if you went over there and subscribed. Give some videos big thumbs up, just like you should do for this video. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Adac, Alaska.
Okay, that, I'm guessing that, well, I'm going to find out in a few moments. I think that's the Aleutian Islands. That's off of Alaska. And yeah, that is out in the middle of nowhere in the Bering Sea and North Pacific Ocean. I have been to Alaska before, not that far. But yeah, Adac, Alaska.
Adac was formerly known as Adac Station, and it's a city that's located on Adac Island in the Aleutian Islands, part of Alaska.
Yeah, the Aleutian Islands, yeah.
In case you don't know, Adac is actually the United States' most western city. This town has a very interesting history. It started off as like a fishing village, and eventually in the 1700s, the Russians came here, turned it into a bigger fishing village, and then eventually they sold Alaska to the United States, and Adac was part of that purchase, and the United States moved in. During World War II, a couple islands away, the Japanese had taken over.
Yeah, the Japanese, one of the few times, people don't know that story, is that the Japanese actually captured 2 of the islands in Alaska, the Aleutian Islands. That's true. That's something that a lot of people don't realize.
the islands. This is the first time ever that American soil had been taken by another country during.
But it had no strategic value. It was basically, okay, you got it. Congratulations. What are you going to do with it? Oh, no.
War. It's the only time. Well, the United States wasn't having it, so we wanted to send military there, and we had people landing in Adac, and they went from just a couple hundred people to 6,000 in less than a month. They built an airstrip and bombed the Japanese on the other islands, and then eventually invaded from Adac. After they chased the Japanese out and captured everyone, they decided they weren't leaving, and they built a legit military base with normal housing, a McDonald's, and everything. And it was there until the base closures of the 1990s. In just a couple months, Adac went from 6,000 people to 300 people. In 2010, Adac had 326 residents, and in 2020, they had 171. If you want to fly out of Adac, it's a 5-hour and 40-minute flight to Anchorage. Actually, you have to stop at the Kenai Municipal Airport and then go to Anchorage from there. I was watching one video, and the Navy's kind of showed a little interest there in recent months, and a lot of it has to do with what's going on with Russia, they say. So we might be getting more people there. Maybe the military base will fire back up, and they'll actually have some new blood in Adac.
Okay, the most isolated cities in the world. This is from World According to Briggs. Fascinating. We went to Australia, to a couple islands in the Pacific, up to Russia, even to the most western city in the United States, up to Norway and to the Faroe Islands. Most isolated cities in the world. Fascinating video. I enjoyed it. Please click like, share, and subscribe for World According to Briggs. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me. I appreciate it. But yeah, most isolated cities in the world. Thanks for watching.